Opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh man, there's got to be something to listen to on this dial.
This message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays as we light the void with Joe Root on Spaced Out Radio.
Ties we had formed, told all the lies to myself, while sleepwalking through it all.
You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void, on Facebook at Lighting the Void, and you can call into tonight's show at 501-777-5631. You can also follow Joe at spacedoutradio.com.
We're sorry. Your call will not be completed as done.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Why don't you talk into the microphone? I got a backup mic right here. Check 1, 2. Testing, testing. Yeah, they both working, and guess what? They don't like no feedback. What's up?
Now, let's fire the show up and light the void on Spaced Out Saturdays with your host, Joe Root.
What's up? Welcome to Spaced Out Saturday night. I am your host, Joe Root, and it's good to have you with us. And it's great to be here. I am very honored to be here with you on this lovely, cold and crisp Saturday in December. Glad to have you with us. Let's welcome in everyone listening on our affiliates. All right, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Newnan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. I'm out of breath there. We're also live on spacedoutradio.com, which, by the way, is down because we've got some hackers, mean people. But we're on Spreaker and the Fringe FM. Now, we rock out every night with us, and you need to rock out with us, to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. Also, you can check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. And you can follow me on Twitter if you want at Lighting the Void as well. You can subscribe to the new YouTube channel, which is Spaced Out Radio, not Spaced Out Radio Show. And listen to us on iHeartRadio in the USA. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. And, of course, the website, when it gets back up, is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radio. So the website's been under attack lately, so we've suspended the server until we can get that cleaned up, so please be patient, and we will get the site back up. Now, if you want to take part in the show, sign into one of our chat rooms on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club, or if you're on Twitter, just go to the hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and I will get to your questions in there as well. Now, the call-in number for tonight is the phones are pretty much live the whole time. Whenever you want to call in, at least wait till the introduction's over. But the call-in number is 501-777-5631. That's 501-777-5631. And if you head over to the website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR space traveler again when the website's back up. But as of right now, it's not. But when it's up, you can go to the Spaced Out Radio store and pick up a T-shirt, poster, or an SOR sticker. And the Encounter is there as well. That deals with everything paranormal. You can check out the latest blog there as well. And if you had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV also have some great video viewing as well. All right. Now, tonight, I'm really going to need you guys to get involved here. We're going to have a little fun. Now, what we're going to do with author Michael Z. Williamson is talk about disaster preparation, whether it be natural, alien, it doesn't matter, as well as some synchronicities with sci-fi, science fiction. So I know you guys are going to dig this. Now, we're going to prep for a few disasters together, possibly. And again, once again, the call-in number is 501-777-5631. I think this is going to be a fun and interesting and even a great learning experience for both you and I. Now, another thing, I have no idea why my cat has been going nuts. Leo, he's getting out of hand. So if you hear a crazy cat whine or noise or a button gets pushed because he's jumping all over the place, if he jumps up on the studio desk, I'm terribly sorry. But I cannot lock him out of the studio. I've tried it, and he is tearing the door apart. So he's kind of sitting over there with his eyes looking all crazy at me, hunched with his back hunched up. I don't know what he's seen, if he's seen a ghost. He's just spooked. But I can't lock him out because it's really going to be bad. You can also email me, too, at contact@lightingthevoid. That's the fastest way to send me files or guest suggestions or complaints or whatever you feel is on your mind about the show. I want to ask you for your patience a little bit because I am not used to looking at 3 or 4 different chat rooms at once, but I promise you I will do my best to get your questions no matter what chat room you're in, if it's Spreaker, if it's Facebook, Twitter. I will do my best. And keep your questions in caps if you don't mind. All right, let's bring on our guest. Award-winning sci-fi author and disaster preparedness expert Michael Z. Williamson was born in 1967 in Birkenhead, England, and raised in many cities including Liverpool, Newton-le-Willows, and the Isle of Wight, England. I hope I say this right, and I'm probably going to kill me if I don't, but it's Mississauga, Ontario, Newark, Granville, and Toledo, Ohio. He joined the United States Air Force at age 18 and went on a whirlwind tour of the deserts and cornfields of America, being stationed at numerous bases while also touring other countries, including Scotland, Wales, I guess that's Majorca, Spain, and Kuwait. Mike published his first novel, Freehold, in 2004 and is essentially a genre-defying author. But he does frequently write in the military sci-fi genres. Now, his newest offering is an anthology, Forged in Blood, about warriors and soldiers tied together throughout time and space. His hobbies include reading, writing, historical reenactments, forging blades, throwing himself out of airplanes, hiking, kung fu, shooting, archery, fine liquors, fine food, traveling, and ranting at the political, social, and moral state of the world. You gotta love this guy. He's like James Bond. Now, you can check out his website at michaelzwilliamson.com. Michael, welcome to Spaced Out Saturday. How you doing?
Good. You pronounced everything correctly, too, except for Majorca, which is one of the islands off the coast of Spain.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I knew I was going to get one of them
It's
wrong.
not my island, so. Yeah, it's not my island.
I got you. Well, I'm trying to get to enunciate my words a little bit better for radio, and I got a little bit of a southern vernacular, so I tend to pronounce things wrong sometimes. So pretty interesting stuff, though. I've been doing a little bit of research on you, and I think this is going to be fun. Now, real quick, before we get into the disaster preparation and everything, how did you get started as a writer? I mean, what interested you in science fiction?
So when people ask me why I write, my response is always I can quit anytime I want to. I started writing at about 8. For a lot of people, writing's not really something you choose to do. It's just sort of something you do. I had a fantastic hit rate on letters to the editor from about age 16. Sold some recipes and stuff, and then I started getting a lot of Second Amendment and disaster articles published in the late 90s. And then shortly after that, I was actually able to talk directly with a publisher who said he'd like to take a look at my novel. After 9 months of back and forth and editing and corrections, decided he'd buy it.
Well, that'll work. But how's the military influenced your writing, though?
Well, several ways. If you're actually in the military, you understand that there's rules of engagement, there's limited budgets, there's chains of command. There's all these things that actually make it much more complicated to write a story than a lot of pop fiction has it. And then you learn that things just randomly break for no reason whatsoever. All of a sudden, the truck just stops. All of a sudden, a weapon that was working just fine jams. You're missing a socket out of your tool set. Just random stuff goes completely wrong for no reason.
Right.
And
stuff we don't prepare for, basically.
Right, yeah. When I was deployed, there was a bunch of toolkits that pieces had gone missing from, so they had me pile all this stuff onto a metal pallet and sort it into what kits we had. And it was like, well, this one goes for a half-inch, and this one starts at 5/8 because there's no 9/16.
I got you.
I have to try and order enough parts to fill things in.
You know, when we talk about disaster preparation, right? You always get the people that are just against it. They're like, I don't know what you're afraid of. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You know, that's just a bunch of fear mongering or fear porn or whatever they want to call it. But everybody says that until something actually happens. So, you know what I mean?
Oh, some of them say it afterwards as well. I'm editor-at-large for Survival Blog. James Wesley Rawls, who's the editor-in-chief, has written both fiction and nonfiction on disaster preparedness. And he had a nonfiction prep book that came out, I believe, shortly after Hurricane Katrina. And one of the reviews, the guy obviously hadn't read much of the book, and he was wailing about how selfish it was to stockpile stuff. And he went to the store to get a chainsaw, and these he called no-neck Hicks had basically deliberately bought all the chainsaws so he wouldn't have one, because obviously that was the only purpose in buying a chainsaw, was to stop him from having one. And a woman in the store looked at him with pity and handed him the last saw and said, I think you need this more than me. And that's how Americans survive. So his theory was that if he was helpless and weak, someone would take pity on him. And I was like, well, that's a terrible survival strategy. And I'm willing to bet people didn't buy chainsaws just for the purpose of depriving you of one. They probably needed them themselves.
When Reagan said that, the famous line, I wonder how we would act. I'm going to butcher this, but he pretty much said, I wonder how, we would get along if we were invaded by an alien race. I think sometimes we take that for granted. And it's in a ton of science fiction novels as well. But do you think, in your opinion, if that did happen, based on your expertise in this field and your studies, do you think the world would really unite, or would we go crazy?
Well, some of each. Because people are individuals. I served for 6 weeks on the Mississippi flood in '93, and there was a tremendous amount of cooperation. People would donate, goods, services, labor, food for the people doing the sandbagging, and we had a water distribution point set up at one town because their water pump had failed, and they'd had notice of this, but a lot of them hadn't gone out and bought water to plan for it. And first we were handing out bottled water donated by Anheuser-Busch, who basically just has one line that produces nothing but water in cans. So it tastes exactly like regular Budweiser.
Right.
And
that's cool.
Yeah. Then we set up these the large farm tanks with chlorinated water, just enough to keep it safe. And we had a woman show up, but it doesn't taste right. It's like, the grocery store is right there. You can buy all the bottled water you want. If you can't afford bottled water, this water is available for free, and you can help yourself. But it's not up to us to provide you with your brand name of water.
Sure.
And then, we had other people who actually showed up as disaster tourism. They showed up to go to the casino and play cards and look at all the flooding. and not help. So you get people who put in a tremendous amount of effort. As soon as something happens, they're there, eager to help their fellow man. And then you get other people who whine and get in the way. And a friend of mine was working at Ground Zero in New York after the attack there, and there was apparently there was some guy who was backing up semi-trucks and telling people to load supplies into those trucks, and then driving them off.
Wow.
He was just stealing disaster supplies and then reselling them. There was a website set up that was a charitable clearinghouse for different charities and fundraisers, and some of them were recognized churches, and they were saying some donations here. But a couple of them, we only want name brand clothes in the package with the label attached of these specific brands. So the obvious thought is they're putting these on eBay to sell, which could still be legitimate if they're then turning that money around. If they understand the market for these particular items and they're turning that money around and donating it, that's fine. But are they doing that, or are they just selling it and pocketing the cash? Yeah.
Highly doubt it. There was a video going around on Facebook that kind of got some people upset. I don't know if you had seen it, but Walmart had thrown out dumpsters full of food, from that was still good. Obviously, some of it was still good because a tornado had hit there. And their corporate policy was that they didn't want to sell any of it or give it away or anything like that because they didn't want a lawsuit. And I'm talking, this thing could have filled up the back of a semi truck. It's just incredibly what we waste.
Some of that's U.S. Department of Agriculture regs. Once milk hits a certain temperature, they have to toss it.
Sure, yeah,
by law.
Yeah, but some of the stuff was canned,
even if it could be chilled again.
You know what I mean? Like canned, like it's lasts forever canned, or cheese that's not bad, and the guy was picking the stuff up going, this stuff's still cold. I know most of you guys seen that thing went viral like crazy around Facebook once it hit. But it does make you think that
but knowing how too happy people are, you can't necessarily blame them for not wanting someone to claim that suddenly getting sick was due to their food and wanting a payoff.
But I imagine if we were invaded by an alien, right? I imagine if we were invaded by an alien race, though, that wouldn't matter. I think the corporate thing would go out the window after a few days.
That probably would, and hopefully a lot of the people who are hindrances would either get the message real quick, just run off and hide and be out of the way real quick, or I hate to wish anyone would die, but that's often what happens to people like that.
Now, here's something that I think is a good point. Science fiction, has pretty much predicted the future since science fiction began. I mean, it's talked about things such as automatic doors with H.G. Wells, voice-controlled computers were prophesized by Arthur C. Clarke, submarines by Jules Verne, handheld devices, by L. Ron Hubbard. The list goes on, right? But science fiction does have a lot of survivalist philosophy in these books. The skills and ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds, that's the big story in science fiction. Do you agree with that? Do you think that that's the big thing in science fiction, or what do you think?
It's certainly one of the big things in science fiction. There's various different subgenres. And then just like with any literature, there's people who write competent characters, people who write incompetent characters, and people who write narrator observer type characters. I've always preferred the competent characters who can manage to get things done, or at least make the effort. And the big thing with science fiction is predicting the changes that happen due to technology, not necessarily the technology itself. Predicting computers wasn't that hard. Predicting that every house would have dozens of devices connected together, and then those connected elsewhere, and the free flow of information and the communication and how that would affect production, distribution, and everything else was something that most writers didn't foresee. Changes often happen a lot quicker than the fiction would speculate. Like look at classic Star Trek. In hundreds of years, we'll have all these medical sensors, and those things exist now. Partly because of the show, people looked at it and said that'd be a cool idea, and went ahead and did it.
Right. Yeah, and Bob Davis makes a good point in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. He says, I mean, look at what happens to us on Black Friday and Cyber Mondays. We eat each other alive. Can't imagine what would happen if, say, a fallout was to happen, nuclear fallout or a possible alien invasion.
Yeah. For anything, you should plan ahead. I mean, I never go out on Black Friday. I've already done my shopping, or I have everything lined up. And, the few deals you might get are usually either hyperbole that you don't actually need, or you can find elsewhere throughout the year if you plan ahead. Whenever I see something, if I'm out shopping and see something that would work as a Christmas present for someone, I buy it. And then by the time, I've already sent all my packages to my family. Everything's been wrapped, boxed.
You seem like the kind of guy that's
arriving imminently.
Got it all together. That takes care of all that stuff, huh?
I try. The stuff I forget, and my wife handles a lot of that. But the longer ahead you think of things, the more time you have to fill in the holes and react.
I'm a terrible procrastinator.
A trip.
I really am. And after going over some of your material, I'm starting to have second thoughts, because honestly, if a snowstorm hit or an invasion or a fallout hit or whatever, I would probably be one of those people darting to the store right now. I don't have a bunker full of water and canned goods like I should, because to be honest with you, when I do it, I ask myself, am I going crazy? Should I really be doing this? But it's not crazy. It's not a bad idea to do it.
And the thing with things like, food, particularly toilet paper, other household supplies, if you wind up unemployed, that is an expense that you don't have to budget for while times are hard. If there's other economic issues, or if you have to do a sudden major home or vehicle repair, what are we going to eat? Well, we've got canned food, dry food. We have our own chickens for eggs. That stuff that we don't have to budget for. The food might get a little boring for a few days, but we're going to have food. Over the summer here, in 1 week, we had a lightning strike, a tornado, and a flood.
Right.
Here at the house. And I'm actually on a hill, and we had a flood. I was looking down at the field below us, and I was wondering, so is there a guy loading animals onto a boat? Because I'm on a hill. Why is my living room flooding?
Well, I can tell you out here, if it starts to sprinkle a little bit of snow here in Arkansas, the grocery stores get ripped apart. Everybody goes for the milk, bread and eggs, and that's it.
Yeah, milk sandwiches, as we call it in the business. Yeah, everyone goes out for milk and bread, and it's like, what are you going to do with that? A friend of mine down near Atlanta, they have 10 inches of snow. I'm up near Indianapolis, and we have a dusting right now. We get cold here, but we often don't get a lot of snow. The lake snows are north of us, and the river snows are south of us, and we're frequently just dry and cold. But I've seen cities shut down. Well, Lakeshore Drive in Chicago a few years ago got snowed in, and everyone started running out of gas and stuck in the increasing snow. The problem with Chicago is as soon as there's a single snowflake, everyone slows down to 2 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Which means they're not generating any heat on the road to melt the snow, so they're going to get snowed in. And for all their talk about how country people are hicks, they can't figure this out.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
I know.
Well, the only thing that I've been stocking up here lately is on, I got to admit, is Southern Comfort eggnog. God, I love it. I'm an eggnog
addict. If you use Kraken rum, you get cracknog.
That's pretty funny. You're right, though.
It's good stuff.
It is pretty good. Eggnog is my favorite thing. Probably, I was a Scrooge until I found eggnog, and that's the truth. Now
I still drink eggnog a little. I burned out on pumpkin spice 10 years ago.
Right. I hear you. Yeah, I don't like it as much as eggnog. It's not as good. It's not as good at all. Now, in an interview with that was done with Ron Hubbard, or L. Ron Hubbard, and I'm sure all of you know who he is. He invented Scientology, wrote Battlefield Earth. But he said, that man is like, quote, prepared for war with virtually everyone on this planet. But we've never been prepared for war with aliens. So he took that idea and wrote a story of mankind regaining its pride and its integrity after 1,000 years of alien domination. What do you think about man surviving an alien attack as described in that book, Battlefield Earth?
It was surprisingly realistic. I mean, the aliens basically just don't care about the humans. They're there for resources, and they have the technology to actually mine the crust and the mantle underneath it. Because I've consulted on a couple of science-y shows on the hypotheticals of alien invasion, and there's not really many reasons to invade a planet. But he picked one that was workable within the context, and once the aliens are situated and have their mining operation running, they really just don't care about the people because there's nothing human beings can do to them after they've been largely wiped out and they're back to a not quite Iron Age existence. So, and that gave a lot of room for the hero of the story, Johnny Tyler, who was as fit as he was partly by chance. There's a lot of contamination in the area, and he just happened to avoid the routes he chose avoided where some of the hot spots were. Right. But it enables him to be fit and healthy, and eventually start acquiring knowledge, and then coordinating people to rebuild a society. It was quite exciting. Hubbard said he was trying to recapture the pulp feel of the 1950s, and I'd always been a fan of a lot of those books.
Yeah, definitely.
He pulled it off. It was one of the things I took from that incorporated into my writing is to keep the action going. It's nice to have these long sections of prose describing beautiful things, and this is something Jim Bain taught me when I was getting my first book sold. If you keep the action going, the reader keeps going with you. You work the other stuff in.
Now, just a question. You don't have to really give anything away here, but have you buried any truths in your science fiction that you know of based on your past and military experience in your novels and books?
Nothing that's not just philosophy that people can pull out, from observing. There's good people, there's bad people, there's preparation to be had. There's no, for some reason, a lot of reviewers seem to think my first novel was very black and white, and if they got that impression, I did something wrong, because there's scam artists on the quote good side, there's honorable people on the bad side. It's all everything's a blend.
Right.
But I don't think I've had any real enlightenments or secrets that anyone else couldn't find.
Well, the reason why I ask, and I was talking to you about this before the show. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's because Tom DeLonge, every time we talk about him on this show, he's buried his so-called truths of secret machines in his book, Secret Machines. And I've read that book, and if he's right, preparing for an alien invasion might not be a bad idea. Not that I buy into all aliens are evil or anything, but it wouldn't. It sounds far-fetched, but it's not really.
Well, it was probably far-fetched to the Polynesians and the Australians, and then the strange-looking people showed up in these large boats.
Right. Yeah. You got a point.
Yeah. There's all kinds of theories on the potential ratio and percentages and numbers of alien life and potentially alien intelligence and civilizations that are out there, and it basically comes down to no one's really sure. There's 3 or 4 workable hypotheses, but the only data we have to go from confirmed is ourselves. So absolutely anything's possible. And just because something is logical and reasonable to us doesn't mean it would be to a species that evolved with a completely different set of necessities and thoughts.
Now you've helped with a few things. Well, just fill us in on this. With what was it? The Discovery Channel.
When Aliens Attack for Discovery Channel, which was also on Science. It's Curiosity Alien Invasion on Discovery. It was when Aliens Attack on Science Network, I think. And that was, they edited the footage they had for Discovery UK as well, which was a longer version, which was actually a better presentation. They had Dr. Charles Gannon, Dr. Michio Kaku. They had me as the military consultant and disaster consultant, and I helped on set with some of their scenes. And they paid reasonable attention to the scientists about, how would aliens do this and why would they do it. So they're pretty good shows as far as TV generally goes. I'm not a huge fan of TV.
Well, I mean, with all the sightings and all the UFO sightings, all of the reports we've had lately, all the paranormal stuff that's been, I would say, increasing in the past 10 to 20 years, the idea of prepping for things of that nature isn't too far-fetched anymore. Yeah.
And I'm not sure necessarily the number of sightings has increased, but our ability to be informed of them has.
Yeah, you could be right. That's a good point.
With modern communication, it's much easier to track this stuff down. And that's it's a two-edged sword, because you have the opportunity to find the information, and if you're capable of looking at the root source, and then you can come to your own conclusions. But then there's also stuff that gets reposted with either a bias or an assumption. And everybody's got some sort of bias or assumption, but some of the websites are probably completely way off. Some of them are very insightful, but still miss a few things. It's just like the news. And you read an article and you're outraged, and then you read the base facts behind it and go, well, it actually makes sense.
It's very confusing to me, man, because there's people that have, like, let's say Richard C. Hoagland 15 years ago was saying, well, there's water on Mars, there's life on Mars, and they were laughing him, all over the place. And then 15 years later, guess what? There's water on Mars, and there's still people today that say that, some of the stuff like the face on Mars he's talking about is crazy. But look, unless you're an astronaut or you've been out there yourself, all we can do is really just guess based on the photographs that we have of what's really out there.
Yeah, I think the face is just a random formation. We get those on Earth as well, but there is water, and they keep finding structures, microscopic structures that are potentially life. So it's still up in the air. Was there life at one time? Entirely possible. Is there life now? It doesn't appear to be, but I
they're hiring.
There isn't, but
they're hiring for planetary defense people now. For, I guess, microbiological threats or whatever. That's what they're saying, but that's a first.
Well, we just had an asteroid come in from another system, from deep space, that they tracked as it came through the solar system.
Right.
So even if, without knowing the odds of life elsewhere, the potential for contamination exists, and there was a lot of that science fiction in the 50s. There was a British comic strip that I enjoyed was Dan Dare and Jet Morgan, both of them. And they covered things like, bringing back alien plants, and then all of a sudden the plant takes root on Earth. And, of course, the War of the Worlds had aliens who were affected by Earth viruses.
Right, and speaking of that, earlier today, I was watching the old X-Files movie. I think it came out in I don't know if it was the late 80s or early 90s, when the X-Files movie, because I know that they're about to release their new season. And that whole movie, that's why I want to talk about this, because movies and comic books and things, they all seem to hide these truths, and we always talk about them later. Oh, there's the symbology, or look at that, and that's really happening. But, in that movie, they were talking about a virus that was, put here by aliens, and this alien base was somewhere, it looked like it was below Antarctica. Now, this was back in the late 80s. Or early 90s. I think it was early 90s. And what have we been talking about for the past year with Antarctica?
Yeah. Similar concept was covered in John W. Campbell's The Thing, which became, Who Goes There?, which became the movie The Thing, which was a very, very disturbing story. About, thinking up a frozen alien that's still got, because of the nature of its biochemistry, is still viable. If we can imagine it, it's certainly possible it exists.
That's right. Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about disaster preparation. No, go ahead. I want you to finish that thought. Go ahead.
So I actually haven't done much of that with my science fiction. That's not where I go. The closest I've come with aliens right now was I was actually very proud of the book, but it didn't sell as well as one of my others. Was Contact with Chaos, where human civilization finds an alien species who are, by definition, Stone Age. They don't have access to exploitable metals on the surface. But just because they're Stone Age doesn't mean they can't have ceramic technology, glass technology, selective breeding, chemistry. So they have rocket-powered artillery. They,
but they don't have basic technology, but they got rocket-powered artillery. That's a little insane.
Yeah. Well, they got basic technology. They just don't have metal for it. They have they have a factory for producing ceramic and flint axes in quantity because they wear out faster than metal. I just started with the viewpoint, well, if they didn't have access to these, how far can you go technologically? And the answer is actually fairly far.
If you look at what happened when Orson Welles broadcasted his science fiction series.
War of the Worlds.
That was, people went crazy over that.
Yeah, it was H.G. Wells doing War of the Worlds. Yeah, he did H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. And people were convinced it was real, even though he interrupted with commercial breaks. But then,
there's commercial break there.
Who wouldn't interrupt the commercial breaks? That's how CNN makes money off mass shootings. Oh,
that's
sorry,
right.
Out loud.
No, you're right. I mean, it's you can laugh at it because we all know what happens. It's pretty sad. And I know earlier, and Debbie makes a good point at hashtag Spaced Out Radio that we are pretty good at coming together as people when disasters happen. Mm-hmm. But honestly, man, I got to say when it comes to the government, though, like with Katrina and things of that nature, it doesn't seem like they do as good as the people do. To be honest with you.
Well, the dichotomy and twofold problem with Katrina was that FEMA's primary purpose is as a clearinghouse for other agencies. These are the guidelines, these are the laws. What are your capabilities? What can you offer? FEMA itself doesn't have any real resources. They've got some they can arrange for portable buildings, but they don't make them. They're built by a contractor. And they can coordinate. But they have to have the information, and the person running it has to be competent, which was an issue. So on one end, people are expecting FEMA to solve all these problems, and on the other end, they're afraid that it's going to take over and be a disaster. And the reality is kind of both.
I agree.
Yeah. But it's terrible mindset to be, well, I'll just wait for someone else to come and help me, because that may not be possible if they're busy digging themselves out.
Yeah, and then you might be on your roof when it's too late. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, I'll absolutely help my neighbors, but I got to get my house in order first. Make sure my kids are safe, and then I can help the neighbor with their kids, and then anyone else is after that. That's just the way it's got to be.
I was going to ask you about that. In your opinion, what do you think are if something did happen, the safest places to go to? I would say on the planet, but maybe in the U.S.
For an alien invasion or a major disaster of any kind?
Oh, let's just say an alien invasion first.
Well, it depends on what environmental conditions they need. If they prefer a warmer environment, then obviously you move up to the Arctic. If they need it cold, you move down to the tropics. In any case, you want to be away from large cities, one, because they're a target, and two, the reason they're a target is because large cities are put where they are for specific geographic reasons. They're put where you can have access to a river or a harbor. If it's an inland city, it's where it's convenient to put a lot of roads.
Gotcha.
And any technological civilization is going to have similar needs. They might not be identical, but they'll be similar. Long Beach Harbor is where it is because it's a natural place to build a harbor for water transport. So all these things are, those are going to be prime targets for anyone who, if they're trying to destroy us. But I also discussed that there's much more subtle ways they could move in. They could show up with a a small element and say, oh, well, we just need some land to settle on and do exploration, and we'll stay out of your way. And then they fly a few more in. And then they fly a few more in. And there'd actually be people defending them. Oh, well, after all the horrible things we've done to our planet, it would be outrageous for us to stop these, kind of decent aliens from settling. And they could just keep moving in. And by the time someone realized it was too late, what can you do? And of course, there's people make comparisons to the pattern of immigration with that.
I'm thinking of the movie Signs when they landed in the cornfield and messed around in the country.
Yeah.
And now David Mead, I don't know, have you been following the Planet X thing?
I have not.
Yeah, he said the one of the safest places to live, based on that, was in the Ozarks, a little bit north from where I'm staying, because it's not highly populated. There's no earthquakes, and he actually, during the time he thought that the Planet X deal was going to happen, from what he says, he actually moved to some bunker in the Ozarks that I'm not aware of, but it didn't go down.
Yeah, ideally you want to live where you would retreat. Now, obviously that's not possible for people who have to have jobs in the cities. And then if you've got, health problems or are elderly, you have to live near a hospital because you have to make the calculation that, your heart attack, diabetes, whatever, is more of a threat to you than, potential aliens, nuclear war, earthquakes, whatever. You have to grid your risk assessment.
Interesting point here, and I don't know if it's really a point, but I would like to get your opinion on it. Moog Boy and hashtag Spaced Out Radio says, prepping for some imaginary end of world disaster is like covering your head in bandages before you get a fatal head wound. I don't know about that.
Well, preparing isn't. I mean, I wouldn't apply the bandages. It's not a bad idea to have the bandages,
right,
if they're within your, again, you have to grid the risks of different disasters. Then you buy the appropriate or acquire the appropriate tools. As I said, you don't want to go running off to the woods unless you need to. You've cut yourself off from civilization, from a job, from everything else. I hang out a lot on zombiehunters.org, Zombie Squad. And it started out as a joke. They're America's elite zombie suppression task force. In between zombie outbreaks, they try to educate the public as to other disasters such as hurricanes, earthquakes, and tornadoes. And there's any number of potential scenarios that you really can't prepare for, so you prepare for the ones you can and comprehend, and you'll find there's a lot of overlap, and eventually you've got the best odds you have with any kind of disaster, which is not likely to be zombies or aliens, but if you're prepared for those, the earthquake's not going to be a problem.
Gotcha. Bob Davis says, head for high ground. I don't know, is that always a good idea? Head for the hills?
It's not necessarily a bad idea. I mean, high ground gets you away from the cities. It gives you a good clear field of fire, which might be important. It means you're safe from flooding. It can make it harder to get to water or other resources. Again, you have to balance things. And that was actually, I think, in Battlefield Earth, they were in the Rockies rather than the Ozarks.
Right.
So they had human enclaves in the Alps and the Ozarks and that, because those are good places to be. You can do a reasonable amount of agriculture, and both ranching and farming. You've got access to running water, not to really large bodies, and they're not really conducive for easily constructing large facilities. I mean, all the cities we have, like Indianapolis near me, it's fed by roads. If something were to happen and automobiles and cars and trains were no longer possible, this place would dry up and blow away. The river here is negligible. You get down to Louisville, Kentucky on the Ohio River, they can bring straight up the Mississippi. So, reasonable mountains, you don't want to be on top of Everest.
No doubt about
certainly
it.
Those have always been hard to take strongholds. I mean, how much effort was it for the Russians and then for us in Afghanistan, where you have to take stuff in by helicopter or mule because the roads are not are not viable. They're very good places to hide, but then you have the same problem of getting resources in for yourself, which is a hindrance.
I've always wondered about that, man. I've always wondered, like,
yeah.
And you can chime in on this too. And is it, if you think, and let's say you're in a community full of people that panic a lot. I mean, sometimes it might be better to go lone wolf. Could be. Yes,
I mean, you have to balance. And the social issue we're looking at here, we're in the country. Officially, we're agricultural. There's a bunch of yuppies moving into the area, and they're basically trying to reverse engineer a homeowners association by having all these zoning regulations. My neighbor does part-time work on Jeeps. He does Jeeps specifically. He does framework, lighting kits, lift kits, off-road conversions. He's got several acres of land. He's got a garage. He has people's vehicles parked out front. And the village, which we're not actually part of, sent him a nasty gram about having all these vehicles there. Well, they're functional vehicles, and they're being worked on in a steady progression, and they're being sent back out. He's a small rural business. It's not like he's running a junkyard. And even if he was, again, we were here first, and your village has voted to expand yourself to include us. Yeah.
Right.
When did we get a choice on these regulations you want?
Martial law has always been a thing that's kind of freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what you can tell us, but in your experience, if something like this happened, if there was an invasion, if there was a fallout, if there was an asteroid about to hit the Earth, whatever, what's the first thing the military is going to do?
The first thing the military is going to do is secure its own resources. That's their primary concern. Then they're going to deploy to protect major government centers and ports, harbors, airports, things that we need for infrastructure. The actual martial law of smaller establishments is not really high on the priority list, which is why it was so botched up for places like Katrina. They hadn't been teaching it properly. And I had a reasonably good training before the Mississippi flood, and then there was nothing for about a decade. And there's I've seen a number of professional papers by military officers of the War College on how a lot of stuff gets filed away and then either not taught or mistaught because it's not deemed to be priority. And of course, no one can learn everything all the time, but it you can rapidly have a complete either incompetent mess or mismanaged mess or ignorant mess because, well, go help over there. Great, I'm here to help. What do I do? You've got people who, I'm here. What do you need?
Yeah, right. Putting people in their most effective places would be an absolute priority. Dan Lopez in the Spreaker chat room asks ask Michael about the gray man scenario. I'm not sure what that is.
If it's what I think it is, the gray man disappears out of sight. He officially complies with whatever policies are being put out there. He's nondescript. He doesn't make waves. He doesn't protest or complain. And in the meantime, he preps everything, packs everything up, and then just disappears.
Pretty much just avoids confrontation at all costs.
Yeah, so it's a case of evacuating and evading after the fact rather than beforehand. And it's got some validity. It depends on the scenario. It's perfectly reasonable to get yourself out of harm's way. And if you do that properly, they might not even miss you for days or weeks, which gives you a tremendous lead time. At the same time, depending on the circumstances, you might, at least some of us would have the moral obligation to try and either change the outcome, prevent the outcome, or assist others. Yeah. Getting your family out of Nazi Germany.
It's not a bad idea.
Absolutely a good thing. Yeah. But then there's also other families, and are you prepared to abandon them behind? And that's going to depend entirely on the circumstances of the individual. You know, do they have the moral character to do it? Do they have the technical capabilities of doing it? Do they have the will to do it? And, you know, what side effects is that going to have on them? And, of course, there were a number of people who were executed for trying to resist the Nazis. So,
you know, back to the military
it's
a
a
little
valid
bit.
scenario, but it's very...
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. You paused there, and I thought I could take off. My bad.
Okay. It's a valid scenario, and you know, it requires a lot of moral choices by the individual. So you can't say this is absolutely what you do, because it's entirely circumstantial and personal.
Yeah, but the military does do some weird things. If, like Trippin says in the Spreaker chat, why is local, state, and federal government shut down and quit making disaster fallout shelters? I mean, that's what he's asking. I don't know that they have or not, but that's what he's asking.
Well, if you look at a lot of the fallout shelters, my junior high school had one, and you know, basically it was the basement and the steam tunnels, and they had some water drums that could be converted into emergency latrines and some packaged food, but there was no way it was going to support several hundred people for any length of time. A lot of it was really wishful thinking, and you know, the individual shelters, you know, I've seen a few that were actually very viable, but they weren't cheap to make, and they had a limited. Actually, Robert Heinlein, the science fiction writer, said he never had one, but he actually did, which is brilliant. You tell people you don't, but and his was set up for 2 people for several weeks, and it actually wasn't found until someone 4 or 5 iterations later bought the house and went exploring. He had it so well hidden. But doing it on a large scale is really cost ineffective. The Swiss do it to a pretty good degree, but they've got a lot of money and a small population, and they're already in the mountains. You know, trying to do it on the Great Plains or in major cities is really not a viable option. And at the time, we were going for more accurate weapons. The Russians were just going for bigger and bigger. Once they got to the Tsar Bomba, the 50 megaton test, which could have had 100 megaton yield if they'd changed the shielding, you know, if you're in Chicago, you're hosed. There's no point in having a shelter.
Sounds like
gone off.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so it was a valid concept, and then they realized the outrageous cost of doing so, which again, I think Highlander predicted that, and I think Hubbard had actually commented on that. It was just never going to be a feasible concept when you had a population in the hundreds of millions. Now, if an individual can afford to do it, there's several companies that will, you know, build you a concrete reinforced bunker with, you know, water, food, either solar or a generator or battery banks. And the cost is actually not outrageous compared to, say, you know, a brand new car.
Very good
point. But
point.
It's not something that's really viable. You can't bury an entire city.
Eric Cooper will not put down the pointy sticks. That's something I wanted to talk about in the second hour was maybe a little bit of weaponry and things of that nature. But they're saying cigarettes, beer, Spam, and pointy sticks. That's all you need.
Well, you know, you can always trade the cigarette. I don't smoke anymore. You can always trade the cigarettes and the beer. It's certainly nice to have luxuries like that. You know, chocolate, coffee, you know, honey. You know, they certainly make surviving a whole lot more enjoyable than just eating canned goods and MREs. And yeah, you absolutely need. You know, if you might encounter others, it's a good idea to have weapons for defending yourself. So what else did you have? Beer, cigarettes, porn.
Right. Well, when your bullets run out, well, you're going to get archaic. You're going to run out of ammunition eventually. Do you keep a stockpile of ammunition, Michael?
Well, I'm a collector, and I've got a lot of weird and exotic stuff, including calibers people have probably never heard of, like 320 Garucha and 7.5 millimeter Swiss revolver, and or Swedish revolver, things like that. So I actually keep quite a bit on hand for shooting, and I keep some pre-staged in magazines, you know, for emergencies, which I hopefully will never need. But yeah, I mean, you obviously want to buy your ammunition ahead of time, not wait until the disaster during the big ammo panic a few years ago and the gun panic.
I remember that.
And I had friends who I thought were well prepared. I was like, well, where can I get an AR-15 and ammo? I was like, haven't you had one? Why did you wait until now?
That old procrastination. That goes back to, I think, Moog Boys, you know, why put a bandage on a head that's not hurt yet? Well, you can never run out of ammunition. And Dave Scott and I, we can get into a big argument because he's not a huge gun nut, but, you know, we've had guns in our family, been passed down. We teach gun safety is the highest thing here, but, I mean, a gun is nothing but a stick without ammunition.
Years.
You know. I'm sorry?
Yeah, and depending on the I've got weapons going back 200 years as far as firearms go.
Oh, wow.
Still shoot. And, well, it's either a very unergonomic club or a pointy stick, depending on how you've got it equipped. And I did an article for Survival Blog. I am a huge fan of the AR-15. But you have to understand, if it's complete grid down, you're not going to have an ammo resupply. You can't plan on getting into extended firefights. You have to plan on not getting into extended firefights as your first strategy. Mm-hmm. And that's an issue in my time travel novel, A Long Time Until Now. There's 10 troops in 2 MRAPs who suddenly find themselves in the Paleolithic, and all they have is the equipment they're carrying on their person and in the vehicles, and they've got to survive with just that. And there was some reviewers who obviously meant well but didn't comprehend. And so they should be out exploring. Like, exploring for what?
Right.
What are they going to find? And this is not this was a convoy. This is 2 vehicles on the road. They've got sleeping bags and ponchos. They don't have tents. They don't have wagons. They don't have any way of hauling supplies they would need for an exploration mission like Lewis and Clark.
Sure.
And then one of the firearm forums, one of my fans had posted there, and one of the comments was, well, just slaughter all kinds of stuff so the natives revere you as a god. There is no ammo resupply ever.
We got to take a break. I do want to continue talking about the weapons, but we got to go to break. We're kind of a little bit late on that, but that's a definite topic. When we come back, author Michael Z. Williamson, we're going to talk about disaster preparation. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every 3rd Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Forecop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, we own the night.
The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. This is Spaced Out Saturdays with host Joe Roop. You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void. And if you want to call into tonight's show, dial 501-777-5631. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, from the deep south of Arkansas, here is Spaced Out Saturday host Joe Roop.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Saturday. I'm your host, Joe Roop. Tomorrow night on the program, Spaced Out Radio with Elizabeth Anglin. And, Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin. And we start off the week again Monday with Dave Scott. And don't forget, after the show tonight, S4 is on. We need to get you guys, don't forget, we're trying to upgrade the studio for Spaced Out Radio, so there's a GoFundMe campaign there to help us get on terrestrial. So if you go to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night, it's moving pretty good, so don't forget to help out there if you can. Dave's got some really cool packages going on there. Go check that out. And if you can't donate, that's cool. You can share it. But we appreciate all the support you can give us. Now, next Saturday, I've got a doozy for you guys. Well, I mean, I'll save that for the next break, but I'll tease you a little bit. The real Oracle from The Matrix is going to be with us next Saturday. Some of you may already know who I'm talking about, but I will give you the details of that at the top of the hour. Okay, Michael Z. Williamson is back with us. Disaster preparation expert and author, sci-fi author, is back with us. And we were talking about, before the break, Michael, we were talking about weapons, right? And obviously everybody wants to talk about guns, but where do you go from there? I mean, if you run out of ammunition, you're done, right?
So finishing up what I was covering, finishing up what I was covering, the scenario in one of my books was that these guys are in the Stone Age with just the vehicles they've got and the equipment they're carrying. And someone's proposal was that they should just, shoot all kinds of stuff and make the natives fear them. It's like there's no ammo resupply ever. You've got with what they had on hand. If they plan to live 30 years, they could fire 10 bullets a year each for hunting. That's it. If you blow it all your ammo, you've just blown all your ammo. And the same thing happens, because the U.S. military gets regularly supplied by aircraft. I was the large logistics base. We had C-141s landing every 10 or 15 minutes around the clock to bring supplies in. And, if you're taking shelter from nuclear attack, a collapse of civil order, an alien invasion, you don't have that. You're never going to have that. And you need to conserve the resources you've got and plan ahead. And eventually the ammo is going to run out. If you're planning for that kind of contingency, again, it depends on what type of contingency you're planning for, what you think you need. But black powder weapons are always an option. Most semi-autos require a specific load range in order to function, and they will crud up with black powder if they even work. Bolt actions will work with black powder if you can find a way to reprime the cases. Muzzle loaders are a 800-year-old technology. They will continue to work. But it's certainly a good idea to have both tools and weapons that are manually worked. Brush hooks, axes, machetes. Shorter. A machete works as a short sword, but you don't want. I wouldn't necessarily specifically get a sword because it's a one-purpose weapon. There's styles like the falchion that work as a brush clearing tool as well. And then
machete wouldn't help. Wouldn't be too bad. A machete wouldn't be too bad of an idea, I guess, right? For all purposes,
it's a bit light as a weapon. It's a bit light as a weapon, but it's useful as a tool as well. And there are heavier ones that will be more effectively as basically a hacking, chopping short sword. What people don't realize is that using a sword is a very complicated skill. It requires practice and does require wrist strength, and the length of the weapon is actually a very relevant factor in its usage. A short sword is easier to use, which is why most of the historical swords designs that persisted are the shorter ones. The Celts, Romans, and Greeks, with that 18 to 20-inch long blade, had just about the optimum weapon that is easy to train with. Beyond that, you get a lot more complicated.
Believe it or not,
axes.
I have some actual experience with a sword, Michael. Back when I was taking combat jiu-jitsu, it was like a mixed system, and we had a Japanese samurai sword class, and we were learning how to properly swing a sword, and there was so much technique to it. I thought, this is crazy. I mean, shouldn't I be able to swing this thing and chop anything in half that I want to chop anything in half? And that's not the case at all. Oh, I'm having some bad audio here. Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes the gnomes.
Yeah. What I said about stuff just randomly breaking out. Number of battles to think about it.
All right. I think we're okay. The gnomes.
Okay. Yeah, spears are a viable option. Again, they require training, but just using them as a pike to protect narrow spaces. Anything you can stick on the end of a stick works for that. There's actually knives that have hunting holes for that purpose for lashing them on. Clubs are. I just saw an article on a Stone Age club that they reconstructed, and they actually had to do tests to confirm. Well, this was actually used as a weapon. Like, yeah, it's a club. It looks like a cricket bat, and it's 5,500 years old. And they determined that a whole bunch of dead bodies that they thought had been from falls were actually from being clubbed. Typically, from 50 or 60 people who died from the same falling injury. That's people who are reluctant to admit to human tendencies to want to concede that these were used in extensive warfare.
I'm going to have to restart the feed, I guess. Sounds like gnomes are getting this, dude. All right, guys, I'm going to restart the feed. Damn it, I hate when this happens. Give me just a second.